What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Rolling with the Punches. I'm Jessie Punch, and I am so happy that you're here. Big week over here for Rollin'. We're coming to you in full video on YouTube and from our brand new studio. So if you're listening to this as audio only, be sure to head over to the YouTube page after this and check it out, because not only do we have this interview with Tyler that we did on his ranch, so really cool to go visit that, but we're also going to have some other content coming to the channel as well, content outside of just the podcast. So all that to say, go check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all those great things, and check out this race car sofa that I'm sitting on. That alone is worth going over to the YouTube page to check it out, because truly this is the most beautiful piece of furniture that you will ever lay your eyes on. Don't argue with me. I also have to say quickly, before I get into this interview, that this whole endeavor over the last few weeks of building this studio and getting everything to you on video has really been a labor of love. So quickly, huge thank you to my buddies Joey and Brian for being there and being such a huge help over these last couple weeks. I really couldn't do it without them. So I'm really excited about today's interview because Tyler Ankrum is one of my favorite people to work with and has been for years. But what was really cool about this is that there weren't really any rules, boundaries. I don't know. Most of the time when we work together, it's very structured. We have a lot of timing that we have to hit and certain pieces of content that we have to talk about. And this was not like that at all. We didn't have to be professionals. We were able to talk about anything. And I think that is when Tyler is his best self. I really love this interview because you guys get an opportunity to see Tyler Ankrum full circle. He's fun, he's goofy, he's a cowboy. You'll learn a little bit about his background. But he was also really candid about his career and where he's at right now in the truck series. I just really appreciated Tyler being as candid as he was about his career and how he's been feeling the last couple of years, and really just getting a chance to kind of see his perspective and his viewpoint and his mentality, I should say, about where he's been so far in his career and also where he's headed. And honestly, guys, he's 23 years old, so very, very early on in his career. But that's also important then. I think it's really important to hear somebody that young be that vulnerable. So I appreciated that. I also will say, bear with us, there is quite a bit of cow talk, farm talk, ranch talk, if you will. But I guess that's just kind of what you get when you sit down with the California Cowboy. Thanks for having me over to the farm,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
ranch. What's the difference in a farm and a ranch?
Oh, we are rolling. Sorry.
Yeah, we are literally rolling. You know, that's the name of the show,
What's the difference between a farm and a ranch, you say? Simple. A ranch only raises livestock. In a farm, you kind of do it all. And most of the time, farms are kind of built around, like most small-time farms, like if you have a couple 100-acre farm, that's it. You're probably more likely have the farm side of things to support the livestock side of things, whether it's chickens, cows, goats. Ranching is just cattle and horses. Like
basically. livestock driven?
Yeah, you nailed
solely
it on the head.
about taking
Livestock,
care of the animals. Yeah.
It's. I mean, I guess you technically could be a goat rancher, but yeah, no.
So what kind of
100%.
animals do you have here?
Just registered black Angus, and a horse.
And a horse.
Got rid of the donkeys finally. I was tired of them. One we had to put down because he got too old. Ernest.
Oh,
You met
R.I.P.
him.
Ernest. Yeah.
Finally. And the other one,
Finally.
the one I wish would have gone away, Oscar. He's still around. He hangs out with Badger now.
How's my girl Lucky?
Lucky's great.
Good.
Actually, when we saw each other last and did something kind of like this.
Work something.
2 or 3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Might have been for the challenge.
Yes.
And we did something at the ranch. She was probably 2 then. Hadn't bred her. And we didn't think she was ever going to be able to. And then
she's an independent woman.
Strong.
She doesn't need to be
woman.
bred.
Yeah.
Tyler, are you kidding me?
But no, she got bred like her when she was like 3 or 4. She might have been 4, and she's turned out to be an awesome mother.
Oh,
she's
good
like
for
one
her.
of the best mothers on the ranch.
And for anyone watching or listening, by the way, Lucky is, as you've probably already maybe figured out, a cow. But I feel like I've known her since her birth because Tyler used to. We used to work together a lot, like very frequently. I felt like we were keeping up with each other on a week-to-week basis. And I remember you coming into the studio and talking about this cow that you had saved.
Yeah.
And that's why you named her Lucky, because you had saved her in the.
Well, my mother named her Lucky.
Your mom, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
named her Lucky because lucky to be alive and lucky I care.
Yeah,
'Cause
there it is.
I don't.
Spoken like a mother's love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I'll
But
just
yeah,
tell the story.
yeah,
if
go
we're
for
he-
it. Please
while
do.
We're here. I mean, I might have been 16 or 17. I don't think I was out of high school yet when this happened. I think I was 18. It was winter. It was whatever the winter was 4 or 5 years ago. We had a really big snow that year, like one of the very rare ones we have in North Carolina. And I was out feeding the cows, rolling out hay, and I just hear "Bah," way out in the distance. I'm like,
You heard what?
"Bah." Just this really weak, like calf moo. I'm like, it's weird. Like either that's really far away, and not only is it far away, there's no cattle over there. So I just kept on feeding. I jumped out of the tractor and I went to go cut strings, and I heard it again, but it was louder. I was just thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to go see just what's over there, if anything. I could be imagining this. And I got halfway there, and Lucky's mom took off after me. I was like, okay, something's definitely down here. Well, the creek, well, we called it Tito's Creek. I don't remember the actual name, but Tito's Creek. I walked down to Tito's Creek, and I could definitely hear her better, and the mom still chasing after me. And Tito's Creek, when it would snow, rain, typically it's 5-6 inches deep, a couple feet wide. When you had a really big rain or big snow, I mean, it would fill up to the top, 3-4 feet. And I look over the edge, and Lucky, or just the calf,
Unnamed calf at the time.
an unnamed
Yes.
calf at the
Yes.
time, she's in the creek, and her head is the only thing above the water. And she was all tangled up in like dead kudzu vines, and she was half stuck underneath a log and like a tree stump. So I jumped down in there, which is honestly probably the wrong thing to do, looking back. Jumped down in there, picked her up, and just like threw her to her mom. And she was on her feet, and she took off with her mom. The theory is that when I picked her up, or the theory is that her mother gave birth to her when she was down by the creek. Lucky got up, fell in the creek. I went to go pick her up. Well, so much of, the bond between animals is the scent.
Right.
It's not like,
And especially right after they're born, right?
especially right after they're born, it's not like I'm going to look at it and know exactly that it's mine, right? They look the same. They're just cattle. They got
Right.
no definitive, facial features or body features. We think when I picked her up, my scent immediately went onto her. So technically I'm a dad already. But I never wanted to bottle feed one, never wanted to deal with it. And so like 2 days go by. I come home from school. My mom stops me and is like, hey, that calf is laid up under the tree, hasn't moved all day. So go over there, see what's up, try to stand her up. She just falls right back down. She's super cold, like you can just feel her super cold. So I think the next thing we did is we brought her up to the house and bottle fed her, and immediately got better.
So you decided to step up as a father.
So I think
and
I
really
decided
take
to step
on
up
your role
as a father, but I went and got the milk, but did come back. So she almost became a pet, and for a lot of years she did. It was actually for a little while it was a pain in the rear end because like you couldn't approach the gate with her without her trying to come to you because she'd want you to pet her or feed her, or hand feed her something.
And she's out in that pasture, like with all the other cows. She's like, I know that you guys think that you know Tyler, but
Yeah, I know.
I'm really,
I know.
I'm the one. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
like
had
a
kind of a
pick-me girl.
complex. Yeah,
Yeah.
1,000,000%. Correct.
And it's actually funny because we didn't think she was going to become a good mom. They just technically didn't have one.
Why do you say that? What? Sorry, but why can you look at a cow and be like, she's not going to cut it?
Well, I mean,
She doesn't have like
if you're
the
gonna-
sensitive qualities that motherhood needs.
Well, if you think about it, it's all when they learn behavioral, they're basically their characteristics, and they also learn, motherhood by their own mothers. of, get up underneath her mother and, punch her bag up, and that's how you'll get some of her milk and,
Sure.
start sucking on her nipples, and
Yeah.
they're going to learn that. So
Stuff
then when
that
they're
we all
mothers,
learn as
yeah,
kids.
absolutely. But they
Yeah, sorry.
but they will learn that because they did it. But no, she's turned out to be awesome. It's pretty incredible, actually.
I love hearing that. Oh, I love hearing that she's doing well. I always learn something when I talk to you, though, Tyler. Most of the time it is about cows. I will be honest. It's most of the time it has something to do with a cow. But no, in the number of years that I've known you, it's been like 6-7 years now that I've known you and worked with you and become friends with you.
8 years.
Really? That
Yeah,
many? I guess.
16. I started racing K&N. That was
Oh,
the
but I
first
wasn't.
time.
I know, but I wasn't around yet.
You
in
weren't?
the racing world. I mean, I was, but like I wasn't working with NASCAR.
You really?
Yeah, I came in right when you won the K&N East Championship. Because I think I talked to you.
Maybe that was 7 years ago. Maybe I was 17.
Yeah, I don't really do math, so you could have said it was 9, and I'd have been like, sure, sounds great to me. But no, but yes, I've learned a lot from you in that time, and it's funny because it always impresses me how much you know about this life. And I know that you grew up in it, of course, obviously on a farm or on a ranch. But what do you say to people that look at your resume and go, wait a minute, this kid's from California? Isn't like Cowboy. I feel like you probably get that often, right?
Yeah, it surprises a lot of people because people don't really know who I am. They all just think I'm from Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it might be like a naive Southeastern take, right?
Yeah,
That like
yes, 100%.
you can't be a cowboy and be from California. You have to be some like beach guy. But your grandpa was in farming, right? That's how
My uncle.
your uncle. Okay.
Yeah, my great-grandpa, Tony Sr., started a meat processing specialty slaughter business. So he had basically, I think it was a red truck with a winch, and if you had a pig, a llama, a turkey, a deer, a hog, whatever, you'd call up Tony Sr., and he'd slaughter it. And then my Uncle Tony came back from Vietnam, went to go work for him, and he had one refrigerator, and he started the meat processing company. My grandpa worked for him in that time, which I want to say was the 70s and 80s. My Uncle Tony started his cattle ranch with the Smoky Tea, and he still does it till this day. But no, that's how kind of it all started. And my grandpa grew up in it, roping and riding, and I've never been, I've never claimed to be this, awesome cowboy. But from what everyone tells me, my dad was. My grandpa wasn't bad. My grandpa taught me a lot of roping and riding. It's actually probably the reason why I rope. I'm a left-handed person. My grandpa couldn't figure out how to teach me to rope left-handed, so I rope right-handed. Almost everything I do other than right, I do right-handed. So like I golf right-handed. I throw a
really
ball
cool.
left-handed. But it's just everyone in my family's right-handed.
Right. So every time you learned, you just learned it that way. Wow.
But they taught me a lot about all of it. And growing up in San Bernardino County, San Bernardino County is, I think, the country's largest county. It's like 20,000 square miles, something like that. It's bigger than like 8 or 9 states.
My favorite thing about San Bernardino is that you never throw in the
San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. It's San Bernardino.
Yeah, San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. But Tyler's from San Bernardino.
Yeah, San Bernardino. That's just how.
I'm Tyler from San Bernardino, California. I'm like, there's a couple more syllables in there, but you get the gist of it. Sorry. That's just always been one of my favorite things. San Bernardino.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's so interesting though that you grew up in this, and it's like you said, you never claimed to be some impressive cowboy. I mean,
because I'm not.
You're a cowboy by the terms of you work on a ranch. I mean, that's your job, and it's neat though because there's not many people that I sit and talk to that are full-time race car drivers that don't sit and tell me about how their dad was a race car driver, their grandpa was like you were more likely to go the farming route. So how did racing come into your life?
Well, so when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cowboy. I wanted to be Lane Frost. I wanted to become a professional bull rider. I watched the movie from the 90s, 8 Seconds. I watched it probably 6 times a day. I watched it on the way back from Coda. And the part when Lane dies still makes me cry to this day. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Still one of my favorites. It's probably
I've
my
never
favorite
seen it.
movie.
I'll have to watch it.
You'll have to
Okay.
watch it. I mean, it didn't win an Academy Award. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But Luke Perry kills it in this movie.
I'll
But
my standards are tempered. I'll let you know.
okay, good. It is a great story. It is actually a great story. But I wanted to be a cowboy when I was a kid, and I don't remember how old I was, but mutton busting, like getting on sheep. I did that one time, and my dad put me on like a steer or something, and my mom found out about it, and she did not like that. My son will not become a cowboy. Pick something else. We are not doing this. We're not going down this road. It's like either your son does something else or it's divorce.
Wish you.
Right? I'm exaggerating.
Was she
but
worried? Well, sure, but hey, I mean, I don't blame her. Put your foot down, right? Was she worried about it being dangerous? What was the?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
And I mean that's a hard lifestyle. Even if you wanted to do it professional, I mean there's so much time spent on the road because my dad grandpa were both into roping. They were team ropers. I probably wouldn't have become a bull rider. I probably would have wanted to become like them and been a roper, which takes a ton of travel. You're in, you're traveling around with 2 or 3 horses in a truck, and you're all over the country. Like you're sleeping in your truck. It's not an easy lifestyle to
Right.
have.
You have to understand the irony, though, in you saying that you wanted to become, a cowboy or this realm, but too dangerous, a lot of travel, sleeping in a truck.
Yeah.
So I decided to go into race car driving.
Yeah.
It sounds like the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
Dangerous, traveling, sleeping in your
Yeah.
motorhome. I mean,
No, it's largely, part of it's largely it's a lot of the same. I think where I got lucky with the racing thing with my parents is my mom's dad was a huge NASCAR fan.
okay.
It's actually cool. My mom's dad died when my mom was pregnant with me, or died right before or after I was born. I don't
Okay.
remember.
So you didn't know him.
So I didn't know him, but I still had all these, kind of memories of the guy because when you walked into his garage, his 56 Bel Air was in the garage, and then he had a Terry Labonte signed baseball cap and a Rusty Walsh signed baseball cap, and he would go to Riverside in the 80s, and he would, after the Cup teams would leave the garage area, he'd go down there with other people and like steal stuff. After all the Cup teams left, so they'd take whatever they left behind. So I have a Union 76 oil can when it was still in cans.
That's cool.
And on the top it still says NASCAR International on it.
That's
I got a
awesome.
couple other things, and I just remember from there I became a huge fan of racing. And so we started going. That was like the family vacation. That was going to
Okay.
Fontana because Fontana was an hour away.
Okay. So how old were you then when you kind of started going to races?
The first race I ever remember is the year Mark Martin won it in the number 5 Kellogg's car. That's actually how the number 58 came along, because Mark Martin won in the 5, so Mark Martin became my favorite driver just because he
Naturally,
won.
yeah.
Naturally, as a kid. And then Jimmy Johnson, every year after that, dominated Fontana. Mm-hmm. And I want to say the walls were even white still then. They might have been blue then. I don't remember. But those were my 2 favorite drivers growing up, were Mark Martin and Jimmy Johnson. So that's how I came up with 58.
That's awesome.
That was the kind of the family vacation. I want to say I was like 7.5 or 8, 7.5, 8, when we went to like a arrive and drive at Orange Show just for fun. Mm-hmm. And it was from like there on out I was sold. And my mom tells me, I don't remember this, but my mom tells me that every day for a year or for 2 years, I don't remember, I asked, when are we going to go racing? When are we going to go racing? And so on Christmas one year, my dad bought me my first quarter midget. My 9th birthday was my very first race.
Wow.
It was in Junior Honda at Orange Show, because Pomona had been closed by then.
And you're 24 now?
23.
23, which I know is a world of a lifetime from being 9 years old, but in the grand scheme of it and in racing, it's really not.
I think it was 2013, 2012, 2013. I had won all 4 national championships in quarter midgets. And at that point, it was just because I was getting big, I was kind of outgrowing the cars, and I had absolutely dominated my last year, so it was like, okay, it's time to jump to the next thing.
Right. What's next?
And we didn't really, at the time, my dad didn't have any real money to go late model racing, but we had money to go race midgets, so we got in focus midgets because that was kind of just the next, kind of seeing the next natural jump, because we had made that jump, and I had become friends with Todd Gilliland, and I don't remember how this happened or how it came about, but for whatever reason, the Gillans, David, Michelle, and Todd, had maybe even Taylor, came over to our house in California for a New Year's Eve party. David asked me, well, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And I looked at him like he was stupid. Like, what do you mean what I want to do? I want to do what you do. I want to be a professional racing car driver. And that's how the conversation started of getting me to North Carolina with my mother to start racing late models for David. And then my dad's business started taking off, and then we raced for David for a year. We hired a crew chief, hired a mechanic, and what Todd and David were doing, they were kind of just sticking to North Carolina, and we didn't know what we were doing, so we thought we had to go travel, like quarter midget racing. So that's what you did. Like in quarter midget racing, you wanted to go race against the most competitive guys, you had to travel. You couldn't stick to the weekly shows.
Well, and especially, I'm sure, from where you were living in California. When you moved to North Carolina, there's racing all around you.
Everywhere.
You've got to travel a little bit.
I thought I was cup racing.
Right.
I was 12, well, because we lied about my age. I was 12 years old, and we thought we were cup racing.
We lied about your age so that you could race?
The age thing was funny, because I lied about my age for so long. It wasn't until I was like 16 or 17 when it finally made the transition where it was like...
You turned 16 twice kind of thing? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Once the statute of limitations was up on
and
that,
I think people had gotten it, years before, but it just enough time finally passed. No one quit.
No harm, no
one
foul.
really cared. Exactly.
You didn't get hurt. Nothing happened from it. It was fine. Move on. Yeah. Obviously, I knew that you raced for David, and that was a lot of getting your start in the NASCAR world. But I didn't realize that him and Todd were the ones that really ushered you in. Which is why then when you look at your K&N season and for you to win that championship for David is really cool to think, knowing now kind of the history that you guys had.
No, it's David's in a stock car. David's given me every single one of my first opportunities. And I wasn't even supposed to race the full season in K&N because we didn't have the money to do it. My dad borrowed money from my uncle and my grandpa just so we can get through the season.
This is the 2018 season, right?
Yeah. So we go to New Smyrna. We have a great race. I get spun out. We'll blow a motor in practice, start in the back. I drive from the back to the front. I'm running like top 5, and I get spun out. I go from the back to the front and finish top 5 or something. It was kind of like, like, hey guys, like, you got to keep on going. I think my next race might have been South Boston, and we went out and just won it. And now it was like we're leading the points. We're looking like serious contenders here.
You're actually competitive.
Yeah, we're actually competitive, and it's just kind of like we got no choice but to take this thing as long as we possibly can. And I think I won 4 races that year and a pole and then the championship. Yeah.
I mean, so your first season in K&N, really, and you didn't even have a full season. And
no, it wasn't planned. It wasn't. And
it just so quickly, the success comes. I have to imagine, though, it's like you said, you felt like you were cup racing, kind of at that age.
Oh, dude, I felt like a superstar.
Right. I mean, but you were like in the K&N level, you were the champion and the East champion.
Yeah.
At that, in this area, like we just mentioned, you have to beat a lot of talented drivers to earn that title. But when the success comes as quickly as it does, did you just immediately say, okay, I'm ready for the next thing? Like you said, in the quarter midgets, you would run your course and says, what's next? But in K&N, I mean, that success came immediately. And then where was your thought process then?
Yeah, you're right. You are right. It was kind of like we were shocked it happened so fast. And I know my parents for sure were thinking this way. I was like, is he ready for a truck? Because we didn't have money to run a full season. I mean, my dad made enough money to get me close enough, and we for sure didn't have it to do a full-time truck deal. And
it's a huge jump.
It's a giant. I mean, I can't imagine what it is to run an ARC car now, but I know at that time I think it was like $900,000 to run a full year in K&N.
And then financial aside, I think it's also just worth pointing out, you're talking about a completely different vehicle, making that jump from K&N to trucks. I mean, there's a lot of stake, I should say, in you learning an entire new race car.
Yeah, 100%. I remember maybe it was 2018 when I got my first truck. Yeah, 'cause my first truck was in 18 at Martinsville. And I remember getting a truck for the first time. And I just remember how
I followed you around that day.
Yes, and you had me mic'd up.
Yeah.
And I remember how tall they felt. Just with the greenhouse, it's a truck, right? Giant windshield. I remember how tall they felt. And I remember, because for the past 2 or 3 years, I'd only ever raced supers, super late models, and then K&N car. And a K&N car was, a mile taller than a super. And a truck was a mile taller than a K&N car. And I just remember how laid over you felt. Like you turn off in the corner, and you just felt so laid over on the right front. Because I'd only driven straight rail cars for the past couple of years, and the K&N car was still closer to a super than a truck. I just remember feeling just like how lazy and how long the wheelbase felt, because just tall, flat, barn door essentially. I just remember feeling like just how alien it was, because a super, sure, the windshield's 2.5, 3 feet long, I imagine, or tall, but the thing's basically laid flat.
Right.
So your window is really only about this big, in a truck, it's 4 foot high,
Right.
and you're just like, I could see so much, and there's so much of unnecessary things I can't see. Like, why do I have so much windshield? I remember just having really weird thoughts.
Who designed this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember getting in it. I was just like, this is like, why is my windshield so big? I don't need to see the grandstands. I don't need to see half of that.
See, but what's so funny about this though is like, this doesn't even take into account your first race being at Martinsville.
Yeah,
So a
terrible
beaten
place.
and banging short track.
Yeah, terrible.
And we know, if you've watched the truck series, the respect factor in the truck series is very unique. It's very much earned in the field.
Yeah.
So to think about you, I can remember I already knew you, and we were fortunate enough to you let us mic you up and follow you around that day at Martinsville and making your first truck start. So exciting. And you were mad when you got out of the race car.
Yeah.
Mad. And I completely understand. I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I had only thought about that element. You getting out there, getting pushed around, getting frustrated because you are trying to run this race and people aren't respecting you. And you're out there like, holy cow, this windshield's really big. I mean, there's just so much going on that I can't even fathom.
I put it to people like this. Like when I'm in a truck, I'm not having fun. I'm working. Like to me, it's not fun. I'm working. I want to be successful. I want to be good, right? But you don't realize in the moment how much fun you're having, because you think it sucks. Like, because it's hot, it's miserable. You're not doing great. You want to do better. You want to be up front. You want to be winning races. But the fun happens after. Because me and my dad will still, even when we were racing quarter, my dad be like, hey, you remember Xenia, Ohio? And he'll just start talking. And it's just like, yeah. It's like we had a, 150 in the left rear and a 115 in the left front. And, you could just like go around. Like we can go through the whole setup in 10 minutes. And it's been 12 years or whatever.
Because you don't even realize what you're learning in that moment of driving it. But it's the conversations in hindsight
100%.
that you,
And it's just like, it's the fun happens afterwards, because you're sitting there going, like, hey, like, that was a pretty sick move, right? Yeah. And you start laughing about it. But in the moment, you're not feeling that. In the moment, you're just like, screw that guy. I'm getting around him. And
whatever it takes to
and
do
whatever
that.
it takes to do it, and I'm just going to drive forward. And you're not thinking that in the moment. What was the last thing that you did that was super difficult that's very memorable to you, right? So for a lot of people, for me, like, I'm a deer hunter, right? So I think about all the times where it's like you climb 3,000 feet looking for Bambi and you didn't find him, right? Or you didn't find her dad. And it's like, that trip freaking sucked. But it's like, then you start to, you remember, how so-and-so, fell over when he was going to the bathroom. It's like, and you start remembering the fun you actually had. When was the last time you thought about the roller coaster down at Carowinds or whatever it's called? It's like, you hadn't thought about that in 5 years. You didn't even remember you still had that memory.
That's so
it's just
true.
because it's like, it was fun in the moment. Like you had laughed and you screamed. It was just kind of like, what? But then 5 years later, it's like, whatever. But all the difficult things that you did and try to succeed in, oh man, you lay in bed and think about them.
Right. And that's, yes, because you worked for that. Yeah. And that's one of the luxuries in a way that we both have in our careers is that we get to work for something on a regular basis and chase a greater goal and a next level for ourselves. But at the end of the day, we're having fun, because, and again, to your point, not in the moment necessarily, because everything is about, like you said, that hard work, but it is a blessing that we kind of get to have the best of both worlds in that sense.
No, 100%. And it's like, especially when you got a great group of guys like I got this year.
Going back though to us talking about kind of that, quick success. I don't want to say rise and fall, but just kind of this.
That's what it was.
How do you get through? I think that sounds extreme because as we've already established, you're so young in your career. Do you remember how you felt after that Martinsville race?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I said you were angry, but I can remember knowing you and knowing how fun you are and how much you love everything. That was the first time I'd really seen you in that kind of mental state.
Yeah. Well, I just remember being mad because just knowing I was better than that, right?
Yeah.
But
Was it a weird reality check though? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, what was your mentality in regards to? Oh, geez, I'm playing with the big dogs now, and this was my first shot at doing that.
Yeah, because at the moment, you walk in, Cannon East champion. Like, these guys ain't got.
You guys are hurting me. Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like you walk in, you feel like Jeff Gordon, or I imagine you feel like what Jeff Gordon feels like, or Jimmy Johnson feels like, but it was a huge reality check because. All it did for my first start, if I would have just gone up front and hauled the mail, it would have shown like, okay, this guy's the next sliced bread. But for me, it showed like, oh, you need to get a lot better. It wasn't. You have
a lot to learn.
Yeah, it wasn't this. It wasn't gonna be easy like you thought it was gonna be. Because like K&N came to me so quickly. But I remember late models was a struggle. Supers wasn't necessarily a struggle, but the competition's so stiff in super late model racing, like even today, like I thought it was stiff then, but
I think it's getting more competitive.
I think it's getting more competitive just because I think from outside looking in, it looks like there's a lot more money in super racing now than there was even then. But I had found success in both late models and supers, and then K&Ns came so easily. I thought I was going to get in a truck and it was going to be that easy. And for a little while, it looked like it was going to be, especially after I won Kentucky. And we had really good speed, but 100% going from short tracks straight to because even after Martinsville, I raced the second to last race at Phoenix. I think I ran 6th there, and that to me was like, okay, like I got this figured out, guys. But I remember the next year going to Daytona because I wasn't old enough yet still, and I remember standing out in the corner because David drove the 17 truck for Daytona. And I think Justin Marks raced that truck at Vegas. And then I think I was in it for the next race, which was Martinsville. And I remember standing down in the corner at Daytona because I'd never been to Daytona before, just going how do they make it around? How do they make it around the corner?
How do they do this?
I remember having that thought. Like I don't
gosh.
even think it was Daytona. I think it might have been for like a Charlotte test or something. I remember standing down like turns 1 and 2, just being like, so how? Like, hey, Bono, so how do they get from there to there? I remember having that thought because it just didn't make any sense because I'd watched it on TV.
Yeah.
But then I'm standing there thinking like, oh, I actually have to do it now.
Well, and you had the same reality that any other race fan or non-race fan person that goes to a race for the first time. And like you said, you take them into the corner and you go, look at that banking.
Yeah.
Look at how steep that is. Like no one can really fathom that. So it's just for you to also have that same experience. But like you said, oh, now I also have to be the one to do it.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like I remember going to my first mile and a half. No, that was my first mile and a half. But I do remember getting in the truck thinking like, how do I, like, I couldn't compute in my own head, like, how is my foot gonna, like, modulate? Like, I remember thinking, like, how am I gonna, and I remember Bono just going, listen, you just gotta hold it wide open. And I'm like, what? He's like, the truck will do it. You just hold it wide open. It's gonna be fine. You'll figure, we'll help you out with the rest. I didn't know any better, so I just trusted him. I was like, oh, the truck will do it easily? Okay. Like, I'll do it. Like, that's really what it was like.
No, don't work that way.
No, well, actually, I wrecked the truck that day.
Oh, well, there you go.
And we had gone the whole day, like tested all morning, all afternoon. It's going great. Bono's coming to the radio like, oh, it's like 2/10 faster than what Kyle Busch qualified on the pole. I'm just like, yeah, okay, well, whatever.
Like, of course it is. I'm the
like, I got
champion.
this.
Are you kidding me?
I've got this, guys. And then we went out and made a run. I forget what we changed on the truck, but we were fast. And Bono comes over the radio and he goes, hey, if it's too loose, like, bring it to us. I'm like, I think I'm fine. Like, next lap, go off and turn through. Just destroy this truck.
It's too
and Chad
loose.
Walters who was my engineer at the time, became a crew chief in 20. We had like Motec data on the truck, or DRP, I think. I don't remember. And he goes, "Congratulations, Tyler. You were going 185 when you spun out, and you slowed it 2 miles an hour down before you hit the wall." I mean, it totally destroyed this truck. And then my first mile and a half race after that was Texas. It was new Texas, though. It wasn't old Texas.
Oh, okay.
It was new Texas.
Okay. Well, that's a little better,
Yeah.
but still.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, that learning curve. There's so much to learn.
It was so big. Yeah.
And the only way you learn is by doing it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But even then, that time, because I forget, is you still had almost I think it was 2.5 hours of practice in that time. Mm-hmm. So you actually had a lot of time to improve on your craft. And I do remember, like my strategy going in 2019, I remember thinking, like, I'm just going to learn as much as I can about these trucks. So I can, as a driver, I can try to set them up as best as possible to help the crew chief, help the engineer, so we can make faster trucks. Because, like Johnny Sauter's been doing it for 20 years, and I'm not going to figure out 20 years of restarts like
right.
So I can
but if
beat
you can
Johnny
unload
Sauter.
better, then
Exactly.
we can start there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think because my restarts forever and qualifying forever were my Achilles heel. Qualifying for me was like standing up on the first tee box all alone at the Masters. Hated qualifying.
Just get in your own head, you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would 100% get in my own head, and then I would overdrive the cars. Just pushing them too hard, or I'd underdrive them. Like I just hadn't the pressure just got to me. Mm-hmm. So qualifying was a struggle, and then restarts were a struggle. Also, because looking back now, I think I was stressed out about restarts. Probably because I knew I wasn't good at them, and then just everyone tell me I wasn't good at them. So like I would sit down and watch a restart and try to figure out how everyone was so much better than me at restarts. But it was just something that I hadn't focused on growing up racing like models and supers and K&N. I just thought I think I would figure it out with time. Mm-hmm. But then you're making jump to jump to jump to jump when every car is different. All that just compounded. And so my lack of experience or that skill being learned had really shown by the time I got to a truck. Mm-hmm. And so it seriously took me, 3 or 4 years in a truck to where now I'm finally to the point where it's like, okay, I can say I'm pretty proficient at restarts. I'm not perfect, but...
See, and I think it's interesting, too, that you bring up the concept of time and learning things over time, because that is so much of what we're taught is, okay, go repetitions, experience, you'll learn it, it's got to come to you. But then once you hit that top level, those 3 national series, how much time really do you have? I mean, you've got to perform or else you don't get any more time.
No,
you don't have
right.
endless amounts of time. There's not endless amounts of money.
Yeah.
So it just goes back to when we were talking about kind of that realization of the success not coming quite as quickly or as easily, I guess I should say. I remember specifically an interview you mentioned last year that you felt like you needed to start performing. You're a winner in the truck series. That's something that a lot of people in that field cannot say that they've ever done. But that was 2019.
Yeah.
And you've gotten to a point where you felt like you needed to reprove yourself in a way. And now you've come out this year with a new team and started the season leading the points. Where is your mentality now? How do you kind of describe these last 2 seasons of ups and downs?
Well, I mean, obviously, like DGR was awesome, right? First win in the first year, part of, back, a couple years ago, part of me said to myself, man, that win was probably the worst thing for you, because the next year was COVID. And I think COVID for me, looking back, was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I was so far behind on the qualifying. Luckily, I didn't have to do that anymore, at least. But I was so far behind even more on my restarts. My restarts just weren't good. Mm-hmm. And I struggled horribly at restarts. And when we went to a short track, when a restart was more like a late model race, I was like, oh, thank God. Like a restart at Kansas, I couldn't figure it out. I just really couldn't. And trying to sit that down in my own head, unbiasedly, and, to be honest with myself and try to figure out restarts was really hard. Partially just because I didn't understand them. And so COVID comes, I have no practice, so I feel like my skill set of learning everything about these trucks to help the crew chief and engineer set them up better from the driver's seat, And now that skill set's not there because
Right.
the sims are close, but they're not the same.
Sure.
They're close enough, but the sim's a tool. It's a tool that you have in your tool bag to help improve the truck for the weekend. It's not going to be perfect every time. So not only do I feel like I've lost a skill set, I have other skill sets that aren't refined yet, and so I'm struggling even more. And so 2020 was a good shakeout for me, and I feel like it hurt my career a lot and development as a driver. I feel like it stunted me because a lot of that stuff you work on in practice, you just never had anymore. You didn't have it anymore.
Well, and not to interrupt you, but I also in 2020, companies aren't looking to throw money at
Yeah.
anything. And so
100%.
for you, I'm sure the pressure as a driver was even higher because you felt like, you needed to really prove to these people why they were
Yeah.
giving you this chance.
100%. And especially when I left GMS and went to Hattori, which, at that time we were still racing for, I forget how much now, but I want to say even at GMS, it was only roughly like 1.5, 1.8, but that was the thing about being at a Chevy team. And we still thought at the time you could do that. You didn't know you were really underfunded, but you're at a rich team with 4 other drivers, so wealth could be dispersed and you could still do it, for that money. And so first year at Hattori, we still didn't understand that, you're severely underfunded. So, and I don't really feel like it was just a great fit for me at Hattori in general. But the second year Hattori, there was 100% no reasons why we shouldn't have, been as bad as we were, because we were actually worse my second year there. And we were fully funded. The sponsor came through. We were fully funded, fully expect to be better. To be honest, I just boiled that all down to poor leadership. And so now coming to this year, I looked at MHR and Bill McAnally, like fantastic leadership. Mark's a great leader. I mean, just in general, from the top to the bottom, there's just great leadership, and they know what they're doing as a company, as a business, and everyone's trying to pull the rope in the same direction. And I knew there immediately as soon as we went there, we were going to be really, really good this year. I didn't expect us to be this good this early, but I really attribute that to Mark, because Mark was really not hard on me, but wanted to get really close to me, personally, to learn me, to figure out who I am as a driver really fast. And I don't think I had been working at MHR for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we were already sitting down watching races together and going through last year's from MHR in my own post-race forums together and figuring out how we talk to, or how we communicate, and our lingo, and so we can start speaking the same language. And it all came really, really fast. And we went to Daytona and hauled the mail. And I remember, talking with Bill at the beginning of the year, the conversations where it's like, oh, let's just focus on making the playoffs this year. And then, Mark would talk that way. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, and this is true, like in the back of my head, it's like, okay, guys, like I'm going to nod my head and go, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. But in the back of my head, I'm going, no, I'm going for it this year. And then we leave Atlanta with the points lead. And it's just kind of like, even I surprised myself with that.
We've got something here.
But then
There's
the real
potential.
test is Vegas. And then I think it was fourth and eighth, and then finished second. Fourth in first stage, I think eighth in the second stage, then ran second. And then it was kind of like, okay, blind squirrel gets in every once in a while. And then you go to Bristol, and we run pretty much top 5 all night long. And for me, that's like, okay, we're real contenders. We can do this. And we're knocking on a win here. Coda was an absolute basket case, but you're going to have that.
But in the truck series, too, the emphasis on road course racing is not as great as it is in Xfinity or
we
Cup.
have
So
one
I
this
do
year.
feel like, one this year?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I haven't really, I didn't realize that. See, and there you go. So it's like, your mile and a half program, your short track program, that's way more important than
100%.
that. But you mentioned Bill McAnally and just leadership in general, incredible leadership, it sounds like already. And that being the biggest problem in your last situation, that's great to hear that's already been the first thing you've noticed in joining this new team is how involved and
it's crazy. I hope Bill doesn't see this part, but it's crazy.
I hope he does
because
see this part.
Bill will call me and be like, oh, hey, Tyler, how's it going? It's like, oh, hey, Bill, like, how's California? Oh, it's great. Like, hey, I heard he had a conversation about Mark. It's like, how how'd you find out? How'd you hear about that? It's
He's
like
everywhere.
when I'm upstairs in the gym, I'm gonna quit talking to myself because I think you got cameras up here. He's so plugged in. It's awesome. It's actually awesome because it's the complete polar opposite of my last team, and he is so involved. He knows every little thing. And it's so refreshing. Really, it's refreshing, and he cares a lot, and he wants all of his drivers to do good, and obviously he obviously wants to do good for his partners, but then also too, Bill, was a racer first before he was a businessman.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said is fabulous, and then you back all of that up with the McAnally name and the success and the respect that he has gandered and grown and built for himself in this sport. It's really an amazing person for you to drive for, and even more so knowing that you are out of California and
Yeah.
the emphasis and importance and what he's done for stock car racing on the West Coast and in California specifically. Did you guys have a relationship before you started racing for him?
No, I think I probably said hi to him in the garage a couple of times.
So then getting this opportunity to work for Bill and Mark as well, is there anything that you've already learned this year that's made you really go, okay, this is why this is clicking? That's you felt like has propelled you as a driver to that like next step.
Um,
It's still early in the year, so that's kind of a loaded question.
yeah. For me, there's a couple different things. Trying to pick out the biggest one. For me, it was how hard I saw my guys working. That was the big one for me. And also too, like Hunter, my truck chief, he was a super late model guy. E-Rock was a super late model guy, and so actually, I think even Tyler was part of the kind of the same camp. So I might have never known those guys, but they're kind of from the same communities and from the same cloth as I am.
Like-minded people.
Like-minded people, and so a lot of our conversations are around super late model racing, and the lingo is the talk is all the same, and so we were able to bond closely over that. But then when I saw how hard the guys were working getting the truck to Daytona, and you crawl up underneath the thing and you see what they're doing to the underneath body and what they're doing to the top of it, and the amount of time and work they're putting into an emphasis they're putting into the sim. For about 2-3 weeks, I don't think they left the shop before 6 o'clock. I think the week at Coda they just didn't leave before 9 o'clock. And when I saw them working as hard as they were for just like Daytona and Atlanta, the thought was like, okay, like these guys believe in me. These guys aren't leaving the shop every single day at 4. They stay an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours later than everyone else because they want to succeed. Because Mark wants to prove something. I feel like I've already proven myself, so I'm calling this Retribution. And my engineer E-Rock wants to prove something. Hunter wants to prove something. Tyler wants to prove something. Rick, my interior guy, wants to prove something. They all want to win. They're all young-ish. They're all hungry, and they
And
all
they
wanna
see the
perform.
potential.
Yeah, and I mean, I
That's
think
big.
everyone does right now.
Yeah, I think that's important for you to have a team around you that wants to win as bad as you do and believes in you as much as they do. And I think it's important. It's not good to live your life feeling like you have something to prove, but sometimes I think in racing and in sports, like that's important to
Yeah.
know that you have more
Yeah.
than people know about you. And so for you to call it retribution, I love. Again, it's early in the year, but do you think that another win could come your way this year?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
I think so too.
I think with as close as I was at Vegas, as fast as I was at the end, and who knows, if Raja was just making sure he got it to the end to make sure he didn't make any mistakes, or if he was saving tires or whatever, or if he was still racing as hard as he was, you never know. But I do feel like I needed 10 more laps to catch him or to get around him. I needed 5 to catch him. I needed 5 to pass him. And it's like, I look at the 11 and the 17 racing against them. It took me 10 laps to get around them. It's like, that's where I lost it. But, looking at Bristol, track historically, I haven't run good at. Vegas historically, haven't run good at. I think Atlanta, I've wrecked at every single time.
So
Had
then-
a career day there for me. And like same thing as Daytona.
So then where's it coming? I mean, tracks that
Yeah.
you are confident at.
Well, that's the thing
where
is
do you
just like
think?
I hated Vegas before this year. Hated it. And I'm like I think I'm gonna love Martinsville when I leave it. Like I just don't know. It's a completely different mindset for me this year.
That's neat. That's exciting. That's
Yeah.
very exciting, especially because, as I had mentioned earlier, the mindset that you had last year. This it wasn't retribution, it was pressure.
Yeah.
It was you were feeling pressured to prove yourself, and just to know that you're in a better scenario now where you feel supported and you feel confident and you know that you still have a big challenge ahead of you, but you feel like you have the tools to take it on. That's
Yeah.
important. That's a make or break thing.
Yeah, and that's really the big thing is the tools. And I'd actually asked Christian this.
Christian Eckes?
Eckes, sorry.
No, you're good.
It's when you see these people every day. You
Yeah.
just see,
My buddy Christian.
Yeah, just Christian.
Yeah, I'm a dude Christian.
But I asked him a couple weeks ago. I was just like, "Hey, do you feel like it's not necessarily like you're working harder, like your effort's not any more or any less? Because everyone puts in effort, right? If you're in the truck set, everyone's putting in some sort of effort. I was like, do you feel like you're just like doing more? He's like, yeah. He's like, I had the same exact thought when I first come here because the crew chiefs, when you come to MHR, the crew chiefs, the owner, the GM, the shop foreman, like they all want you to be part of the conversations. They all want to ask you, what do you think can be better? They want you involved in the team, which is honestly so much more different from almost everywhere else I had been, where you're part of those conversations. So when you go home, it gives you something more to chew on. They want you to be involved in the conversations with strategy. What do you think with tires? What do you think with fuel? What do you think with the setup? What do you think with sim? And so you're involved in a lot more of these things. So when you go home, like for me, I still take notes like the Cold War way, and yellow sheet of notepad paper.
Yeah.
Like and I write notes.
I find that I
handwriting long
remember
ways.
things better if I
I do
write them
too.
down. I don't blame you. Yeah.
Which is so weird because Christian doesn't do that. He takes clips from races. He can remember better. He can remember them better that way.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
I
Me
never
and him
would have
also
thought
talk
that about him, but
Yeah.
it's a more like creative brain, it seems like, than a
Yes.
analytical one.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
100%. Because I thought about the same thing. Because I tried it. I was like, oh, that sounds way better. Sounds way less time consuming.
Yeah. And then for me, I'd space out halfway through the clip.
Yeah.
And I
like,
would. What was I learning here again?
Exactly. You're 100% right.
Can't do
So I do it all, handwriting, but it's been a truly amazing learning experience coming to MHR, and that's the awesome thing too is, they leave the door open for you to kind of be part of any conversation. Like there's no judgment if you don't want to necessarily be part of the conversation, or if you don't, we're not going to tell you that we're judging you, but we probably are because we want you to be part. Because we want you to be part of it.
Right.
We want you to be invested with us.
They encourage you to do more than just drive the truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a respect factor.
And
they respect you.
Yeah, and honestly, it makes it so easy to work more. And in turn, it makes you want to work harder.
In talking about this year and in just your journey as a whole, and you being confident that another win is going to come soon, this retribution, what do you feel like you have to do to prove retribution? Would one win be enough for you?
Yes, to kind of close the chapter and just move on. Yeah, one win would be enough to say, like, I'm back.
I still got it.
I'm back. Because I don't feel like that's the other thing. Cause I talked about that with like so many people. It's like I never feel like I lost it. I still have it. I can still do this. I'm just as good as everyone else out here. I just have the horse underneath me now to do it. Yes, absolutely. I feel like one win would be enough to get back on track. To say I can still do it, and I can do this at a high level.
And there's something kind of nice in a way too about flying under the radar a little bit right now, knowing that you have the potential and knowing that being so confident that success is going to come.
Yeah.
And for right now, just who cares if anybody else sees it?
I was thinking about this on today's Tuesday.
Sure.
I think today's Tuesday, right?
Yes, it is.
I think it was Sunday or Monday. I was thinking about this because I was so pissed off after Coda. Like, part of me did think to myself, like, I'm actually glad Coda happened the way it did, because I was starting to lose that anger in me again.
Ooh.
Because I was having fun again. I was running up front, like, doing all the things that I used to do.
Right.
I'm doing them again. And people that never come and talk to me or coming to stop by and talk to me again, wanting to know what I think and all those things. And I was starting to really have fun again. Me and the guys are getting along great. We're going to dinners. We're hanging out, at the ranch or at Mark's house, and we're just having a great time. And I'm starting to have fun again. Like, I'm starting to like this a lot again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Coda happens. I'm just like, now I'm pissed off again. It's like, I'm glad that happened because I don't want to lose that edge.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to.
Yeah, the fun is good, but the fun, it was a lot of what we were talking about earlier. The fun comes afterwards, right? The fun isn't what fuels you when it's 1,000,000 degrees in that race car. That's not why you're doing it. It's not the fun in that moment. It's the anger. It's the passion. It's the drive. Tyler, is there ever a world where you aren't driving race cars and you are a cowboy full time?
I've thought about that. You get in bed, drunk, emotional, like,
Alone, late at night.
Late at night.
Thinking about life.
Yeah. Maybe a depressing George Strait song came on and you just got a little too emotional. Yeah, for sure. I've thought about it, but no, honestly.
Not anytime soon.
No, not anytime soon.
And goals are?
Win, man.
Winning.
Win.
Win.
And get to the Final Four.
What about long-term goals? I mean, yeah, of course, win Final Four. But, like, you want to race in the Cup Series? Like, you want to be,
absolutely.
like, Hall of Fame? Like, what is my Tyler Ankrum? Like, I want to, like, write it down now so, like, when you're old, I can be like, remember when you said you wanted this? Oh, a fountain?
No, like the fountain, the cigarette boat. Or a cigarette boat.
Oh, I thought you were telling me you wanted a fountain. I was like, oh, I'll write it down.
In the big lake house.
Okay.
Cool cars. I could care less
I feel like you've already got a lot of this, man. You got cool cars.
The El Camino.
You got,
That's about it.
All right.
That was my first car.
All right.
But that's, big boat, big ranch, big cars. Or not big cars, cool cars. And the best way for me to do that, I feel like, is to win races and continue to climb the ladder and make more money.
Yeah, 1 week at a time.
Yeah, 1 week at a time.
Okay, before I wrap this up with you, I'm going to do a segment with you that I call Long Story Short.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you're like me, and I'm the queen of saying, a long story short, and then it being the longest story that you've literally ever heard. Yeah. But the whole point of this is that feel free to make this story as short or as long as possible. If you want to give me one word answer and move on, that's totally fine, but we'll see. Okay. Tyler, when was the last time you cried?
Oh. On the airplane coming back from Coda watching 8 Seconds. It wasn't ugly cry, but it was like...
It was like a nostalgic tear.
Yeah.
That wasn't you crying. That was like young Tyler.
You're asking like when was the last time I let the
No,
waterworks?
I'll take that. That's look. I don't need to know your personal life that much. I mean, unless you want to share, but like I didn't need to.
I don't remember the last time I cried.
I was totally fine with that first answer. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
We can stop there.
Perfect.
Okay. When was the last time that you remember feeling just an immense amount of pride in something?
September 26th. 2023. I just got done weed whacking this whole place. All the frontage fence. On my own.
Oh, that was the end. Oh, I thought there was okay.
No, that was it.
Oh, I thought there was a second half, and I got a call about No, okay. How many acres was that?
It's like 4 or 5 miles of fence, something like that.
It was also the last time you cried very emotionally was
when
you got done.
Emotional.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Cool.
I was very emotional about that.
4 to 5 miles of or acres of weed whacking.
Yeah.
That's a lot of whacking.
That's a lot of whacking.
It's a lot of whacking.
A lot of whacking.
For one guy.
Okay.
And then the last bit here before this gets any worse is one piece of media. It can be like a song, it can be an account, it can be a video, a podcast to listen to. Recommend one piece of media that our listeners
your mom's house.
Check out.
Not your mom's house, like your mom's house.
I was like,
podcast.
my mom's house is pretty cool, but what
is it?
It is, yeah.
I mean, the white walls are nice.
How do you know my mom? So it's been great having you here, Tyler.
Wait, was that actually right?
Yes.
It gets,
please.
it's a 50-50 shot.
Please.
That's actually a good guess, but a lot of people's walls are white in their houses.
Yeah, it was a fair guess.
But no, Tom Segura and Christina Pajinski's podcast, Your Mom's House. great podcast.
I'll check it out.
Wheeler Walker was just on there. It's a great one to listen to if you want to. It's just a good laugh. It's just a lot of it's just dumb humor.
Mm-hmm. Good, like, mental cleanse.
Yeah.
Like,
And Tom Segura seems to have a dark sense of humor. Which is perfect for me.
Can I tell you my biggest pet peeve with you?
Yeah. Can I guess?
Sure. Oh, actually, try to guess, because I wonder if you really genuinely know this. I think I've probably told you this before.
Well, typically people's top 3 are people that chew with their mouth open.
No, this is specifically with you. This is my biggest pet peeve with you specifically. Yeah. This one's personal. This isn't general mouth chewing. Are you kidding me? Okay, don't think too hard. It's gonna get too personal here, and then I'm gonna be like worried. You're gonna be like,
apart about myself
I know,
here.
and then I'm,
all right,
I'm
me.
gonna feel bad. No, you have such a fabulous personality. That's why, one of many reasons why I love you, and we all love you.
That's what your pet peeve about me.
But there's always a but, right? Wait till the but.
I'm too infectious.
No.
She's
I'm too wonderful. No, my biggest pet peeve with you is that you are so fun, but the second that we are in some work thing and I go, Tyler, you're like, hey, I'm Tyler Ankrum from San Bernardino. Yeah, we have a good truck for tonight. I think we're going to do a good job. I'm like, do you find yourself do you notice that you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you do that on purpose, or is it just an instinct?
No, I think it's instinct because it's work. I go into work mode,
sense.
and I just, like, emotion.
It's very serious.
Yeah, emotion goes out the window.
I don't know. I do wish you could show more of that personality, but I totally get it. And I just had to call you out on it, especially for my own sake, because I can't tell you how many times I've been like, guys, Tyler's so fun. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
this is going to be the best interview. And then you're like, yeah, I don't know. I think we qualified okay. And I just got over. And I'm like, yeah. I promise he's really fun. You asshole.
Well, now I'm just going to do it on purpose.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
You're welcome.
I told you guys, Tyler's a lot of fun. He is a very, very fun person. So thank you, Tyler, again, for having us over to your ranch and opening up in the way that you did. I really, really appreciated it. And I hope that you guys listening to this that you were able to at least maybe take something away from this, or at the very least, get to know Tyler a little better. And maybe you're now a Tyler Ankrum fan. We'll see. That being said, I will link the podcast that Tyler mentioned. As always, I will link it down in the description for this podcast. I will also link all of Tyler's information so that you guys can go check that out and follow him as he progresses on throughout his season and throughout his career. Once again, please go check out the Rollin' with the Punches YouTube page. Also follow us on Instagram at rollin.punches. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. Mom, thank you so much for listening. I love you too. And I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.